Hi everyone, it's Kelly here. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time. Welcome back if you've been before. Lovely to have you either way. On this channel we talk books, and today I am bringing you a book haul from the month of July. I have, for me, a pretty reasonably sized book haul today. It's not overly crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 books, which for me is not heaps. If you've seen some of my very, very big book hauls, I'm a secondhand shopper. I do like going on the hunt for interesting things in secondhand bookstores, and often my secondhand portion of my video is much bigger. The pile is much bigger than the new books, which is definitely the case today. So let's talk about what I have picked up in the month of July. The first book I'm going to tell you about is this one, which is called Snowdrift and Other Stories by Georgette Heyer. I have quite a big Georgette Heyer collection, which you cannot see, but it is right there, up here above above where the cutoff is. And I have actually only read a couple of Georgette Heyer books, but I have really enjoyed everything I've read from her. So I definitely keep an eye out for her stuff when I see it secondhand. However, this was new, and the reason I picked this one up is because, and foreshadowing, I think, to a video I'm going to make in the future, I'm about to go to the snow, in the not too distant future. So I am going to be, I want to bring this one with me. So I think I'm going to film at some point a TBR video of books that I'm planning to take with me to the snow. So I'm going to attempt to do that, and this will be definitely on it. So let me tell you about it. It says on the back, a treat for all fans of Georgette Heyer, which I am, and for those who love short stories full of romance and intrigue. This collection also includes 3 of Heyer's earliest short stories published together in book form for the very first time. That doesn't really tell me much at all. But essentially she writes in a couple of different kind of genres. Historical romance. It's just started raining really heavily, if you can hear that in the background. Historical romance, so she writes in a couple of different time periods, including the Regency period, Victorian period, I think, maybe. And she also writes mystery novels as well. So this could be a mix of all of those things. But that's the first book that I picked up, or at least that I'm telling you about in this video. The second book that I'm going to show you that's new is this one, which is Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks, which is a memoir by her. Geraldine Brooks is an Australian author, a best-selling author who's been best-selling author for some time. So it was let me tell you about this memoir. A memoir of sudden loss and a journey towards peace from the best-selling Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Horse. It was Memorial Day 2019 when Geraldine Brooks received the news that her husband Tony Horowitz had collapsed and died far from home in the middle of his own book tour. The complex tasks required in the face of such a sudden death left her no time to properly grieve for him. 3 years later, still feeling broken and bereft, she booked a flight to Flinders Island off the coast of Tasmania. There she pondered the ways other cultures deal with mourning and finally seized the time and space she needed for her own grief. Alone on a rugged stretch of coast, she revisited a 35-year marriage filled with risk, adventure, humour and love. So that sounds lovely. Poignant, and I'm looking forward to reading that one at some point. Now, don't laugh at me. I bought the 3rd book in a series. I already own books 1 and 2 in this series, but I haven't read any of them. The reason I picked this up new is because it was a very good price. Like, I'm talking like $10 to $12 kind of thing. Don't laugh at me. I know it's ridiculous, but here we are. It is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. I am yet to read books 1 and 2 in this series, but this series, I believe, follows a character called Emily Wilde who documents fairies, the fae folk, in her world, and I don't want to read too much into what the plot of this one is about, because I presume that it will have spoilers for books 1 and 2, which, as I said, I have not yet read. But here we are. We've got it. We have it. We're ready to roll. Uh, I'm a ridiculous person, and I know it. Another sequel that I have picked up, and this is the last of the new books, is book 2 in the Witch Hat Atelier series. I mentioned this series probably in the month of June. I think I read the first book in this series. It's a manga series, and it follows a young girl who sort of accidentally finds herself in the world of magic, without sort of knowing much about anything, and it's sort of her finding her way in that magic world. She goes to a magic school in the first book for a little bit, and there was a big cliffhanger at the end of book 1, so I'm glad I now have volume 2, because now I can follow and see how that hopefully resolves, or, you know, we get some more information about what's going on. And I know that there's quite a few more volumes of this, so there's more to come. But I have now acquired volume 2, and we're ready to read that one. Let's now talk about the second-hand books that I picked up in the month of July. These are in a really random order, by the way. It's just the order they're coming off the pile today. So the first one is this one, How to Get There, a memoir by Maggie Mackellar. I read a memoir by Maggie Mackellar called, I was going to say Drift. It's not Drift. It's something like that. Put the name of it on the screen. I can't think of what it is right now. Grift. So I read a memoir by Maggie Mackellar called Grift 2 years ago now. It was on the Stella Prize long list, and I absolutely loved it. What I didn't realise is Maggie Mackellar has already written a couple other memoirs, and this is one of them. This is How to Get There, and in the book Grift, we're following a kind of like a year on this is a memoir, so this is true life. She lives in Tasmania on a sheep farm, so she's a sheep farmer, and this is how she got to Tasmania, because previously she had been, so it says here on the back, in 2011 Maggie left her family's farm in central west New South Wales for the east coast of Tasmania with her children and assorted menagerie to live with a farmer. So she basically falls in love with a farmer who has a farm in Tasmania, and she ends up moving there. In the book, she explores learning to love again after great bereavement and the complexities of doing this in a community with which she is unfamiliar with 2 young children. She reflects on negotiating a relationship while being a mother, the rhythms of country life, displacement, and writing. This is a story about making a new life in a remarkable setting on a Tasmanian sheep farm in a stone house built by convicts in 1828. It is a book for anyone who has imagined taking a risk, for anyone who has moved to a new place and been beset by homesickness, for anyone who has fallen in love unexpectedly. Sorry, I didn't read the beginning bit of the blurb, which talks about that her husband, presumably the father of her 2 children, I guess that's a bit of a presumption. Anyway, her husband passes away, and also her mother passes away. This is her second memoir. So that was all covered in memoir number 1, apparently, which is called When It Rains. So I'll have to find that as well. But anyway, her writing was really great in Graft, and so I'm looking forward to getting to this one at some point. Another book that I picked up is The 7 Skins... Ooh, shiny. The 7 Skins of Esther Wilding by Holly Ringland. She's the same author that wrote The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart. So yeah. I don't really know much about this particular book. It's just very pretty. And I've heard of it, which is the reason that I picked it up. On the afternoon that Esther Wilding drove homeward along the coast, a year after her sister had walked into the sea and disappeared, the light was painfully golden. The last time Esther Wilding's beloved older sister Aura was seen, she was walking along the shore towards the sea. In the wake of Aura's disappearance, Esther's family struggled to live with their loss. To seek the truth about her sister's death, Esther reluctantly travels from Lutruwita Tasmania, to Copenhagen, and then to the Faroe Islands, following the trail of the stories Aura left behind. 7 fairy tales about selkies, swans, and women, alongside cryptic verses Aura wrote and had secretly tattooed on her body. So it sounds really interesting, and it's also really pretty and shiny. So here we are. This is how I decide which books come into my house. Are they pretty and shiny? They can come in. Okay, the next book I picked up is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I have never read Sally Rooney before. This was a book that everybody was talking about when it came out at the end of last year, and I found it for $5, so I thought I will give it a go. I also believe it's about chess. Yeah, published in 2024. So it says, Peter is a successful Dublin lawyer in his 30s, but in the wake of his father's death, he is medicating himself to sleep and struggling to manage his relationships with 2 very different women. His first love, Sylvia, and Naomi, a college student for whom life is one long joke. Ivan is his 22-year-old brother, a competitive chess player. It is about chess. And he has always seen himself as socially awkward, a loner, the antithesis of his glib elder sibling. But when Ivan meets Margaret, an older woman emerging from her own turbulent past, their lives become rapidly and intensely intertwined. For 2 grieving brothers and the people they love, this is a new interlude, a period of desire, despair, and possibility, a chance to find out how much one life might hold inside itself without breaking. So yeah, Intermezzo. We've got it. We can read it at some point. This was an interesting find. It's Atonement by Ian McEwan, but it's this weird edition with green spreadges for some reason. I don't really understand that, but I have been on the lookout for a copy of this book that isn't a movie tie-in edition. This came out originally in 2001, so it's been around for quite some time. I have actually never seen the movie, but I know of the movie. On the back it says, on the hottest day of summer in 1935, Bryony Tallis sees her older sister Cecilia strip off and plunge into the fountain in the garden of their country house. Watching her is her childhood friend, Robbie Turner. By the end of that day, the lives of all 3 will have changed forever. Robbie and Cecilia will have crossed an unimagined boundary, and Bryony will have committed a crime for which she will spend the rest of her life trying to atone. Sounds interesting. Let me know if you've seen the movie. Is it good? Should I watch it? Anyway, I now have a copy of Atonement, so at some point I will probably get to that one. I have been on a bit of an adventure, an investigative adventure, learning about an author who had come up, and then I've just been finding her books and information about her and connections to her. The author is called Charmian Clift. You may have heard of her, I'm not sure. She was an Australian author, and she was married to, what is the name of her husband? Her husband wrote an acclaimed, I think Miles Franklin winning book, George Johnson. He wrote, I think it was called My Brother Jack, which won the Miles Franklin in the year that it came out. But she was an author also, and I think because of the times, because we're talking 50s, 60s, because of the times, she was under, I don't know, she wasn't appreciated for her talent in the way that she probably would if she lived now, if that makes sense. Anyway, this is Mermaid Singing and Peel Me a Lotus. It's 2 memoirs that she wrote while she and her husband were living in Greece. So they first went to London, and then they went to Greece with their 2 children. And these are the memoirs of that period for her. In my next book haul, because I've already started getting stuff in August, I have another book by her. So she's just sort of been popping up a lot, and I think it's a sign. Anyway, I'm looking forward to reading this and to continuing to learn more about Charmian Clift and her genius. So that's that. Another really interesting find was this one, which is 1788 by Watkin Tench. This is really like, I would say, foundational document. It was written in 1788, and this is his journals. He was on. Was he on the first? Yeah, he was on the First Fleet. So if you're not familiar with Australian history, obviously the First Nations people had been here for many, many thousands of years prior to Europeans setting foot on this land. But when they did come, and they came, this was set up as a like a settlement for criminals that England didn't want to deal with on home shore. So they were transported to Australia, and this was the First Fleet was the first set of convicts brought across to the land of Australia. Watkin Tench was an officer, I think. He was a young captain, it says. A young captain of the Marines, and he was a natural storyteller. His account of the infant colony is the first classic of Australian literature, they say on the back. So this is, like, I've heard a lot of quotes from this text, but I've never read it in full. So I was just interested to find that it had been published as a book. So I am looking forward to at some point going through that. I don't know if I'm going to read it in full or if I'll just kind of like dip in and out of it, but I'm glad I've got it now. Cool. It was a cool find. Another cool find for different reasons was the Twyford Code by Janice Hallett. This is not the one that everyone likes. The one everyone likes is called The Appeal. I don't have a copy of that one. But this is a mystery book that is told in files, emails, text messages, basically like multimedia things. And you've got to try and solve the mystery. You never, like, there's no narrative. You're just reading the, like, documents, basically. So you've got access to the information as it kind of comes to light. So that's the Twyford Code. I don't want to find out anything about it because I don't want any spoilers. But that's basically what it is. I think The Appeal was, like, the first one that was really huge and everyone thought was great. I don't know that people like this one as much. But sometimes it's hard to follow those kind of things. Like, follow up, you know? Alright, 2 more books to show you. This is a romance. It's called Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I've never read any Tessa Bailey, but I've heard good things. Like, I think people quite like her as a romance author, so I'm willing to give it a shot. And this is of interest to me because we are talking about home renovations, which is something that I watch a lot of videos of. I don't do any home renovations. You know how you kind of get into those little moods of different things on the internet that just bring you a lot of joy? I like watching people doing renovations, talking about their renovations. Anyway, this is kind of like the best of both worlds. It's a romance and it's about a home renovation, so I'm excited about that. So yeah, I don't really want to look too much into it. I think that's probably enough information really to decide whether or not you want to read this book. It's a romance about people doing home renovations. She ends up kind of getting into this guy who is a baseball guy who has an injury that ends his career, and now he's flipping houses. So yeah, I think that's going to be the romance. Anyway, that's probably all we need to know. Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. And the last book that I'm going to show you is this one. It is the Heartstopper Yearbook by Alice Oseman. I am reading my way through the Heartstopper series. I actually only have number 5 to go. And then this came out more recently, and I wasn't particularly necessarily interested in this in and of itself, but I found it secondhand, so I was like, obviously I need to get it. So this came out in 2022, and it sits alongside, I think is like a companion to the Heartstopper series of graphic novels, of which I believe there are 5 at this point. Will we get more? I don't know. So yeah, that's my last book that I picked up in the month of July. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and seeing me haul all these books. I've already started buying books in August, and it's literally the 2nd of August, so there'll be another one. It's coming. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.